Imagine two backend developers who graduated from the same college and had almost the same CGPA, and today even have the exact same job title on LinkedIn, which is backend developer. But one of them is earning around 7 lakhs per annum, while the other one has already crossed 70 lakhs per annum. And no, the second person isn't some coding genius or topper of his batch. So what exactly has changed? Is it because he knows Java better? Did he solve more DSA questions? Or is there something bigger that most students completely miss? Because if you ask me, this is probably the biggest misconception people have about backend development. Most students think that backend salaries follow a fixed ladder, like gain a few years of experience, switch a company or a two, and your salary will automatically keep on increasing. But that's not how industry works. And that's exactly what we are going to break down in this particular video. This is not another list of top backend skills that you have to learn today, because there are hundreds of those on YouTube already. Instead, we are going to answer a much more important question that almost nobody talks about. Why do two backend developers with the exact same job title end up earning salaries that are 10x apart? So let's discuss how much do backend developers really earn. So let's get straight to it. How much do backend developers actually earn in India today? If you look at compensation data collected across thousands of backend professionals, the number that keeps popping up is somewhere around 42 lakhs per annum on an average. Now this might sound great, except that this number is almost useless on its own, because that 42 lakhs per annum isn't one market. It's multiple markets combined, like freshers, mid-level engineers, senior engineers, and even staff engineers all mixed together. It's also people at service companies, product companies, funded startup, and global tech companies all thrown into the same data set. So when someone tells you that backend developers earn 42 lakhs per annum, they are really combining 5 or 6 completely different markets and calling it one number. And that is why you will always find backend developers earning around 6 to 8 lakhs per annum at one end, and others with the exact same job title crossing like 40, 50 or even 70 lakhs on the other end. Same designation, same backend developer title on LinkedIn, but widely different pay. So the real question isn't how much do backend developers earn, it's why two people with the same title end up 10x apart. And that's exactly what we are going to break down in this particular video. That same misconception, the fixed ladder, the one we talk about in the starting, is worth sitting with for a second, because it shapes how computer science students plan their entire career. Because the industry has never worked like that. If experience alone decided compensation, then every backend developer with 3 years of experience would be earning roughly the same amount. But all you have to do is look at people from the same college or even the same team to realize that it's not true. You will find engineers with almost identical resumes earning completely different salaries, and the obvious assumption is that one of them must simply be a better programmer. Sometimes that's true, but usually it's not. The actual difference is that they are solving completely different kinds of problems. One engineer might be building internal tools that a very few employees use every day, while the other one is responsible for systems that processes millions of transactions, serves millions of users, or power a company's core product. And that part, most salary discussions completely miss. Everyone keeps talking about learning more skills or adding another framework to their resume, but a very few people stop and ask a much important question. What are those skills actually worth to a business that's paying you? Because once you start understanding this, backend salaries start making a lot more sense. So let's begin talking about the first thing. What actually decides your salary? So if experience doesn't decide your salary, what actually does? The first thing to understand is that companies aren't paying you for the programming languages that you know. Now, whether you are writing Java, Go, Python, or Node.js, this is rarely the deciding factor. Those are just tools, and companies are paying you for solving the problems that you are capable of. Think about it this way: if your job is to build simple CRUD APIs or maintaining a fairly standard backend services, you are solving problems that thousands of other developers can solve as well. and there's naturally going to be more competition, and salaries tend to reflect that. But now imagine on the other end, a backend engineer is working on a payments platform like Razorpay or PhonePay. Every second, thousands of transactions are flowing through their systems. If one service goes down or a database query suddenly becomes a bottleneck, the company isn't just dealing with a technical issue. It could lose revenue, customer trust, and in some cases even attract regulatory scrutiny. Suddenly, the role of that backend engineer looks very different. They are expected to design systems that handle millions of requests, identify production issues before users even notice them, and make sure the platform keeps running even when traffic spikes unexpectedly. Now, those are not problems that every backend developer can solve, and that's exactly why companies are willing to pay a premium for people who can. In other words, companies don't reward developers based on how many technologies they know. They reward them on basis of how much business risk they can remove. Now let's begin talking about what actually explains the gap, and that difference isn't random. It usually comes down to 4 things. Number 1, the kind of company you are actually working for. Number 2, the complexity of the problems that you are solving. Number 3, the scale of systems that you are responsible for. And at number 4, we have how much trust the company places in you when something critical breaks. Now, once you look at backend salaries through that lens, the numbers stop feeling confusing, because you are no longer comparing job titles, but you are comparing the business impact. Next time, if someone says backend pays really well, don't just ask how much backend pays. Ask which backend they are talking about, because there isn't one backend market anymore. There are multiple backend markets, and each reward a completely different level of responsibility. Now let's talk about how the backend job has quietly changed. And this is probably the biggest reason why backend salaries have changed so much over the last few years. If you had become backend developers 5 or 6 years ago, your job would have looked very different than what it's today. In many companies, writing APIs or working with databases, handling authentication, and managing server were considered enough to be a solid backend engineer. Fast forward today, that definition has expanded dramatically. Today, companies expect backend developers to think far beyond just writing code. You need to understand cloud platforms, because deploying an application is just the beginning. Once your product starts growing, questions around scaling, infrastructure costs, availability, and performance become just as important as the code itself. Think about Blinkit during Diwali, or let's take an example of Swiggy on New Year's evening. The traffic can jump multiple times within minutes, and that's when cloud infrastructure stops being a buzzword and becomes the only reason why app keeps working. And then there's distributed systems. Now, most modern applications don't run as one big application anymore. They are made up of multiple services that are constantly communicating with each other. If one service becomes slow or unavailable, it can create a chain reaction across the entire system. And understanding how those systems interact has become a core backend skill. The same goes for microservices. A lot of people treat them like a modern way to build software, but the reality is that they are just another architectural choice. Use them correctly, they make systems easier to scale, but if they are used incorrectly, they will introduce unnecessary complexity. Knowing them when to use is often more valuable than simply knowing how to build them. Security has also become a much bigger responsibility. A few years ago, many developers looked at security as something that another team would handle. But today, that's no longer realistic. Backend engineers are expected to think about authentication, authorization, encryption, rate limiting, and even protecting sensitive user data from day one, because single security incident can cost a company far more than the effort required to prevent it. And then there is production. Writing code that works on your laptop is one thing, but writing systems that continue working when millions of users show up unexpectedly, or when servers goes down, or when traffic suddenly spikes overnight is a completely different challenge. And that's where concepts like monitoring, observability, reliability, and even system design have become incredibly important. Take UPI for an example. When it works, nobody thinks about the backend engineer behind it. But if UPI goes down even for just 10 minutes, millions of people would notice it immediately and it becomes national news. And that's the real difference between writing code and running production systems. If you look at all of this together, you will notice something interesting. A backend engineer today isn't just writing about APIs anymore. They are helping build and operate the infrastructure that keeps the entire product and the business running. And that's also why the line between backend engineering, cloud engineering, DevOps, and site reliability engineering has become much blurrier than it used to be before. Now, you don't need to become expert in all of them, but you can no longer say infrastructure is not my responsibility. Modern backend engineers are expected to understand how their code behaves in production, not just whether it compiles locally. And once you reach that level, you are no longer competing with someone who is simply building CRUD APIs. You are solving problems that directly affect reliability, scalability, revenue, and that's exactly where companies are willing to pay significantly more. Let's talk about number 4, why these skills actually pay more. So here's an interesting part. None of these skills increases your salary simply because they are difficult to learn. They increase your salary because they solve expensive business problems. Take cloud for example. Most people think AWS or Azure is just another technology to add to their resume. But for a company, cloud is directly tied to cost. An engineer who can optimize infrastructure, reduce cloud bills, and design systems that scale efficiently isn't just writing better code. They are helping businesses save lakhs of rupees and sometimes even crores every single year. The same logic applies to the distributed systems. Modern applications are made up of dozens of services talking to each other. And when one of them breaks, it doesn't stay isolated. Remember, one bad configuration change took down Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp for hours in 2021. And that's the failure mode that we are talking about now. The engineer who can trace that kind of problem back to its root cause in minutes instead of hours isn't just debugging, but they are protecting revenue, trust, and company's reputation all at once. Now, security is another great example. If an authentication flaw or a data breach exposes sensitive customer information, the company isn't just fixing a bug anymore. It could be dealing with legal issues, regulatory penalties, and even massive loss of customer trust, which is very expensive. And that is why engineers who naturally think about security while building systems are incredibly valuable today. And then there is production engineering, which I think is one of the most underrated skills in backend development. Almost anyone can write codes that works on a demo. The real challenge begins when your code has to serve millions of users, handle unexpected traffic spikes, or recover gracefully from failures, and even continue running reliably every single day. Now, those are the engineers that companies rely on the most because they are the ones who keep businesses running when everything else starts falling apart. If you look closely, there is a common pattern across all of these skills. None of them are about memorizing more syntax or learning another framework. They are about reducing risk, improving reliability, saving money, and even protecting revenue. And that's why backend salaries can vary so dramatically. Companies are not paying more because you know Kubernetes or AWS. They are paying you more because your knowledge allows them to build products that are faster, more reliable, and far less likely to fail when it matters the most. Now let's talk about the fifth part, which is where does AI fit into all of this? And this is one of the biggest questions that almost every aspiring backend developer has today. Okay, what about AI? So if ChatGPT can write code, if Claude can generate APIs, and if coding assistants are getting better every month, does backend development still have the same future? And surprisingly, I think most people are asking the wrong question. AI has not reduced the need for backend engineers. If anything, it has made backend engineering even more important, I would say. Think about what happens when a company decides to add an AI feature to its product, or maybe it's adding an AI customer support chatbot, an AI coding assistant, or a recommendation engine. From the outside, it looks like they have simply connected their application to ChatGPT and called it a day. But that's nowhere close to what actually happens behind the scenes. Someone has to build the infrastructure that connects the product with those AI models. Someone has to make sure that responses are fast enough for users, costs don't spiral out of the control, and sensitive customer data stays protected. And even the entire system should continue working when there are thousands of people using it simultaneously. And if AI needs access to companies' document or any sort of private knowledge bases, someone has to build systems that retrieve the right information before the model generates the response. And that's where concepts like RAG, vector databases, and AI orchestration come into picture. It all sounds familiar. That's because it's still backend engineering, just with an entirely new layer added on top of it. In fact, building an AI demo is relatively easy today. Almost anyone can connect an API and get impressive results within a few hours. The difficult part is taking that same feature into production, where it has to serve thousands or even millions of users reliably, securely, and even without costing the company a fortune every month. Now you notice how we are back to the same skills that we have been discussing throughout this video. Scalability, reliability, security, infrastructure, monitoring, and even system design. AI hasn't replaced those skills, it has made them even more valuable. And that's why I don't think AI is taking backend developer jobs away. I think it's creating a entirely new specialization within backend engineering. And because the demand for those skills is growing much faster than the supply of experienced engineer, that's also where some of the highest paying opportunities are starting to emerge. So where does all of this leave you? I think the biggest takeaway from this video is that you're asking a wrong question if you're trying to figure out whether Java pays more than Go or whether Node.js pays more than Python. See, programming languages are just tools, and companies don't pay you more because you pick the right language. They pay you more because of the problems they trust you to solve. And the same goes with roadmaps as well. A roadmap can help you learn technologies, but it can't guarantee a salary, because compensation has never been about ticking boxes on a checklist. It's about value you create once you are trusted with real production systems. If you look at the engineers earning significantly more than everyone else, you will notice something interesting. They didn't necessarily become experts in every framework or every language. Instead, they gradually moved towards a part of engineering where mistakes are expensive, systems that need to scale, infrastructure that has to stay reliable, applications handling sensitive user data, and now AI-powered products that millions of people depend on. Those are not glamorous problems to work with. They are often the problems nobody wants to own because they are difficult, stressful, and carry a lot of responsibility. But that's exactly why companies pay so much for engineers who can handle them. And I think that's the biggest lesson backend development teaches you. Your career isn't defined by the number of technologies you learn. It's defined by the level of responsibility people are willing to trust you with. So if one thing I want you to remember from this video, it's this. The difference between a backend developer earning 7 lakhs per annum and another one earning 70 lakhs per annum usually isn't the job title, the programming language, or even the number of years they have worked. It's the size of problems they solve, the scale of systems that they are building, and the confidence a company has that when everything is online, they are the person who can keep it running. And if you focus on becoming that kind of engineer, the salary almost becomes a byproduct.